Hey everyone, Jim Coventry from Rotowire here, the Wednesday with the Fantasy Football Week 13 players to avoid. Now, some of these players you're using in seasonal leagues, so you're starting them no matter what. But DFS and certainly smaller leagues, these are players that are trending downward, is another word what we're talking about. Always look at the 3 week trends and look at the whole season trend. Just update every week and try to figure out what is going on. Let's start out with Alvin Kamara. We know he's a great football player. That's never the question. But his yardage in his last 3 games, he's got a 45 and 89 and a 50. The problem is his targets. There was a while with Andy Dalton where he was seeing 9 and 10 targets a game. The last month, those have dried up. Now, hey, Vordor, he has a 7 target game in the last 3, but a 4 and a 5. The targets are still too low, and they've been in matchups where they really needed him. And his rushing attempts have gone way down. He has an 8, a 12, and a 7. So basically, his opportunities per game are 12 to 17. That's low. So that's explaining why things are going on. Now I know he fumbled twice, especially once at the goal line against the 49ers, and I get all that. But overall, basically the offensive line has crumbled this year. We knew they were going to take a hit in a couple players they lost, but injuries have hit, inconsistencies hit. Teams don't respect the quarterback. And so realistically, it's just been a difficult go. Kamara's doing the best he can, and he had a great stretch early in the season, and we loved that. But right now he's trending downward. And in DFS, he's a really long shot to use. Seasonal, he's still getting you a running back 2 value, getting enough yards most weeks. That 45 and 50 weren't so great. But for the most part, he's still at least seeing some targets, and he did get goal line work. Carl Benson, thank you very much. I appreciate you, man. Saquon Barkley's the next one. And so we've talked in past shows about how defenses in the NFL are really making some, they're not bold moves, but they're not to the level they've been in past years. Bill Belichick was the guy, game plan specific, and other teams, a lot of offseason adjustments. We're just seeing teams like wholesale make these changes now per week, and it wasn't that way. Well, Saquon Barkley. So look, Brian Dable, big hats off to him, right? Early in the season, using 3 tight end sets, 2 running back sets with an extra tight end, and they were just really creative in the running game, and they were opening up a lot for Saquon, and Saquon's natural ability was building with that, and he was having some great games. But recently now, defenses just sat down and they said, you know what? Daniel Jones, not worried about him. I get it. Darius Slayton gets his 1 big play a game. Great. He can have it. Nobody on that offense from the receiver standpoint or the quarterback standpoint scares opposing defense. So what happened? They play Detroit. Saquon Barkley is getting ganged up on 15 carries, 22 yards, and they're even ganging up on him as a receiver. 2 catches for 13 yards on 5 targets. Plays Dallas. A little more of the same. 11 carries for 39 yards. Now he got the touchdown. Great. 6 targets, 4 catches, again, just 13 yards. So in those last 2 games, we're looking at 35 and 52 yards. And again, he had the 1 touchdown, which helped. And at PPR, he's getting a few catches a game. So it's useful. But after week 4, it was looking like Barkley would be the running back 1. And now down the stretch, he's scratching to be a top 10 weekly options for the season. Those numbers built up will give him, a lot of status. But in down the stretch, it's really hard for me to put him, inside the top 8 running backs because I see what defenses are doing, and it's going to work because the Giants aren't going to have an answer because Daniel Jones is not that guy. All right, Christian McCaffrey's the next one, and it's only perspective here. Now, apparently he has knee soreness. I hope he's okay, but we already see the usage. The 49ers, when they took him on, they had to have realized his injury history. And the one thing that I said was, if they were smart, they're going to use him more on the perimeter. They don't want to run him between the tackles. He can do it, but durability-wise, he'll take a toll. And his touches the last 3 games, 18, 14, and 15. Certainly those that spent the top 2-3 pick on Christian McCaffrey in the overall draft. They were hoping on him getting 25 touches in a lot of games. In Carolina, he was starting to get that. But his yardage in the last 3 games, 77. He did have a 106 and a 49, no touchdowns. And 1 touchdown in the last 3 games. So it's, again, he's a good play. Of course, he's Christian McCaffrey, but he's not the ceiling guy that fantasy managers hope for. Now, if you roster him, If it's close to the trade deadline, you should at least shop his name around. Somebody might not be watching the week-to-week stuff. They might not be realizing that the trend isn't great right now. You may be able to get a haul for him. Try it. See what's out there. If there's not an offer that blows you away, keep him. You got Christian McCaffrey. Can't argue with that, right? All right, Kareem Hunt's the next one. Now, 6 or 7 touches in each of his last 3 games, which obviously when you're getting 6 or 7 touches, you're not getting yardage, right? A 19, a 54, and a 21. So 2 games out of 3, 21 yards or less. He's playing 40% of the snaps, which has been the case most of the season. His touches are just low. I do not see that improving with Deshaun Watson. So what I think is, we're still going to see the same amount of work out of Chubb. Chubb's going to see lighter boxes because, look, you got Deshaun Watson, you got Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones is playing well. Now I'm a little worried about Njoku's new knee injury, but nonetheless, defenses can't go in and say we're stacking the box and we don't think Deshaun could beat us. They know, unless he's really rusty, which is possible, but defenses are going to have to stop the overloading of the box because of the weapon with Cooper, DPJ, and Watson. So it's going to change it. So we could see the same amount of touches for Nick Chubb, but we could see that elite level production like he was showing for much of the season. But I think Kareem Hunt, I don't know. I would almost say that 6 or 7 touches may go to 4 or 5. I could easily say it happened. Keep Chubb on the field a little bit more. The hits aren't as bad if you're not seeing loaded boxes, but that would be the best version of their team. Tyler Boyd, he hasn't hit 45 yards in his last 3 games, and on the season, he's only gone over 50 yards 3 times. Now, 2 of those games were big, well over 100 yards and a touchdown. So he definitely has that. But that's the point. Twice in like 10 games, he's had that big game. In 8 games, he's been very moderate to low production. So as long as you're starting him as a flex, you're okay with that because you can live with that. When you're in the wide receiver 3 territory, those floor games get to be a little bit painful. So weigh out your options, but remember, so I would almost say bust, boom, because your boom bust guys, they got quite a few boom games, but we're looking at 20% here. And in a small sample size season, he's going to have one more. And when is that going to happen? So there's a little bit of concern there. A lot of people were asking me about DeMarcus Robinson last week. So he had that big 9 for 128-yard game on 9 targets, caught all of them a couple of weeks ago. And he did have a 68-yard game a couple of weeks prior to that. But I kept telling people, it's like, I get it. He had 2 decent games. But DeMarcus Robinson's been in the league for a long time, and he played with Patrick Mahomes. And it's like, if you couldn't get it done with Mahomes, and there were times they needed Robinson to be the guy, and he couldn't do that. So I said, all right, so I get it. He had a couple games, but this can't work. And then, of course, he has a pair of 1-catch games with less than 18 yards in 2 of the last 3. So that's what you're looking at. And that one spike game, the 100 yards, but the other game was only 68 yards. So we don't really have a lot. Yeah, Vorador, no doubt. A little concerned for Boyd. I try to be nice about this. You understand that. Curtis Samuel, he's trending down quite a bit as well. Early in the season, they did a great job of utilizing him as a runner and a receiver. And then it started to really go trend downward. And in his last 3 games, he has 13 touches, but only 3 are catches and 10 are rushes. And I know Samuel's a good runner, but teams are really loading up to stop the run of Washington because they don't respect Taylor Heineke. So Samuel's not getting those high leverage runs for explosive gains. And so his yardage in the last 3 games, 40, 28, and 13. So he is getting borderline unstartable. Now, he did score a touchdown a couple games ago, which helped, but realistically, 13 touches in 3 games, that is not getting it done. And it was looking for a while like he would be a real viable option, not so much. And another one, Alec Pierce. I almost think you can't start him right now. 2 goose eggs in the last 3 games. He has a 3 for 28. That's 28 yards in 3 games. And I know he had that little stretch where he was having 60 yards in a number of games. But, some people say rookie wall. I know that the pressure, anytime there's pressure on Matt Ryan, and Sunday against Dallas is going to be ugly. It's just difficult because Pierce is kind of the odd man out because we have Pittman in the short area. We got Paris Campbell in the short area. So Pierce can run the other routes, but they kind of need him to be a little bit more downfield. So that's a little bit problematic. So next one we'll look at is Diontae Johnson. He has one game over 63 yards all year, and he hasn't scored a touchdown. He's usually about 30 to 40 yards a game. And so that's what you got at this point. So that, and there's no upside, right? There hasn't been a upside game all year. So he's moderate floor, no ceiling. So understand that when you're setting your lineup. And again, he's a flex. That's all he is right now. He is not a wide receiver 3. And he's not getting enough catches even for PPR to be that. Evan Ingram's disappeared in the last 3 games. He had a great start to the season, so to speak, right? He was putting up decent tight end numbers, and his last 3 games, a total of 26 yards and 5 catches, 7 targets. He fell off the map. So right now, go to the waiver wire. And another tight end who's become useless, Greg Dulcich. We talked about this. He had the LA Chargers game. We had the play where J.C. Jackson blew a coverage and Dulcich had a long touchdown. And then there was another play in his next game, and I don't remember exactly which it was, but there was like a somewhat blown coverage, and it led to a bigger play. But his last 3 games, here's his average. 2 catches, 17 yards, 4 targets. So if it weren't for the 2 blown coverages, it's not working out. Right now, you're hoping for a big play, but the odds of it are small in a broken offense. And then Gerald Everett, too. Now, he missed a game in his last 3, 23 yards or fewer in his last 2. It's averaging 3 targets. And with Keenan Allen back, the middle of the field is going to dry up because Allen's the guy, right? And we got Austin Eckler getting his double-digit targets a game. So Everett's the loser here, I believe. And then hopefully you haven't been counting on Mike Gesicki because he, still playing about half the snaps. But he had a 3 catch for 34 game inside the targets. But otherwise, he's not doing anything. This is a total production of 3 games, 3 catches for 34 yards. That's it. And in one game, it was 2 for 31. So in the other games, it's 1 catch for 13 yards. There's a goose egg in there. So Gesicki just has been an odd fit for that offense. There's sometimes in the red zone they use him as a 2-touchdown game. So there's always TD potential. So if it's a dart throw touchdown you're praying for, you could probably go with him. All right, let's get some questions here. Vorador, appreciate you, man. Thanks. And Carl, like I said earlier, thank you. Appreciate the great comments there. Joe, hi. Jimmy G or Watson. So I know that Houston, there's a lot to think about this Houston game, right? So obviously Watson goes back into Houston. The crowd probably is going to be very, very angry and hostile toward him. I don't know if that matters. Watson's going to really want to turn it loose. I mean, of all places you want to go, he's going to want to burn the field up with touchdown passes. And I imagine the Browns want to see their investment come out, and they're probably going to let him throw. Now, I know you can run all day on Houston, but I think they're going to want to get him involved. Jimmy G, look, we got Debo's banged up with a hamstring, and CMC is banged up right now. They're apparently dealing with some knee soreness. I am not optimistic right now. I'm very nervous about it. And I love Jimmy G since the McCaffrey ad, and I had him in a couple leagues. But I have a league where I have both of them. And for me, I'm playing Watson. I didn't even think for a second about Jimmy just because the way things are shaping up. And they're playing – now, Miami's a great team to pass against, but they get some pressure. And – I just think that it's one of those things where Mike McDaniel knows some of the offensive concepts. He knows Jimmy Garoppolo. So I think he has an edge there. I'm going to go with Watson, but we do understand Watson could mentally have an issue in that field going back to Houston. There's something there. I got to go with Watson. Vorador, yep, concern for Boyd. I know I said that earlier. MSA, Mike. So here was the deal. I could safely have told you on Sunday, and I did some people, Mike White was a very good start. The Bears get no passers, worst in the league. The Bears were already a middling secondary, and I'm being generous. They were without Brisker, and they were without Kyler Gordon. And so this Mike White doesn't do well under pressure. Well, he wasn't going to get pressure, and he wasn't going to see tight coverage. So it was very advantageous. We saw last year, when he played the number 1 Bills defense, he went 0 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He's not that bad. And as long as his line isn't good this year. The line has injuries. Vera Tucker's been out. They've lost a number of people. So when Mike White's under pressure, he's not going to be a great quarterback. Now, there are games where he'll be okay. And they're playing the Vikings. Now, the Vikings are a top 10 pressure rate team. I don't think they're devastating, but they're very good. Now, the Vikings can't cover. So there's a bit there. So I think it's a middling game for Mike White. But I think basically he's going to be very, very matchup dependent. But the dump offs will help. He was very good getting the ball to his running backs and his tight ends, and that adds up too. But it's not going to be a high end. What we saw, that was his best game of the season that we saw against the Bears, because the matchup could not have been better. All right. Matrix, any hope for Kamara after the bye week? Again, the change at quarterback would hurt because Jameis is the one that couldn't get him the ball. Dalton for a while was getting him 9-10 targets a game, and then it stopped. And I can't figure out why. Dalton, it was working. It was making him a better quarterback, and he went away from him. And so that was very, very frustrating. So, look, Kamara's a supremely talented player. We know that. But right now, that offensive line is terrible. And that's the biggest problem they have. So right now, their pass blocking per PFF is number 26. Their run blocking is 28. So they're a bottom of the barrel line. And like we talk about on these shows, defenses do not respect Andy Dalton. They have some respect for Chris Olave, but they're willing to let him have a big play or two in a game because it's okay to give up a couple of those if they're not running consistent offense. So Kamara is another one of these running backs that's running into the buzzsaw of teams realizing one-dimensional offenses can be taken out. It's sad. But certainly there's hope. There's hope for Kamara, but they've got to get him back to the 10 targets a game. That's the key. And if they got him 7 last week, that was a baby step, but it's got to be 10 targets. And yes, he can cash. D. Herberger. Flex choices, Gallup, Davis, or Tyler Boyd. Yeah, Davis tomorrow night. His yardage overall has been problematic, and he had the one game that was decent. Allen's elbow, now the more I think about it, is probably worrying me a bit. Gallup got some perceptions, and they're playing Indy this week, and against the zone, some of that underneath stuff. He's not going to have a big game. Gallup is like a floor play. So I don't know that Gallup has a ceiling to make me go off Davis. And we talked about Tyler Boyd earlier. We expect Jamar Chase back, and Boyd hasn't been getting a lot of targets. I'm sorry. And so realistically, I think that Boyd, there's too many bust games. So it's got to be Gallup or Davis. And I think that neither of them are great options. And I don't think Davis has that 150-yard, 2-touchdown upside. I don't think he has that. But I think he has 65-yard and a touchdown upside. And I don't know that Gallup has that right now. So I think with them all being like lower floor guys right now, I would probably take my shot on Davis because there might be a tad more ceiling there. Matrix, if Najee's out, you play Warren or Pittman. And Warren apparently was cleared, but that doesn't mean he's 100%, right? And if he had a hamstring injury and missed a game, and all of a sudden on Wednesday they're saying he's good to go, I'm a little sketchy on that, right? So right now, Dallas is a tough matchup for Pittman. I mean, what Pittman saw on Monday is probably we see here, but the pressure's going to be worse. And Ryan's going to implode again. He's going to get the ball out. So Pittman's going to get a bunch of short targets. It's not going to be much after the catch. So I think this is one, Matrix. If you could circle back with me on Friday when I hear some practice reports, I'd really like to hear if Jalen Warren gets a full practice. And that would mean a lot. If Warren gets in a full practice by Friday, I would play Warren over him. Yes, I would. But if there are limited practices all week, he could be in a 3-man committee, even if Najee's out. And at least Pittman would have a floor for you. But, is Warren going to be susceptible to a setback? So if he has a full practice, definitely yes. All right. And anybody can always circle back with me at Jim Coventry NFL on questions if you missed these shows, too, because I do these shows like I don't pick up till Saturday. Brian, looks like you got a couple half messages. I'll get you. Vorador, you got a question. I think someone like Noah Gray could ever replace Kelsey. You know what? Yeah, so Kelsey's a wide receiver, right? He plays tight end. He's a wide receiver. And he has that great mind meld with Patrick Mahomes. What they do is they're great at improvisation. So you see with Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford, where before the route gets finished, they're choice routes, right? So both player, the receiver and the quarterback, they read it as the ball snapped or the route begins. And If the leverage is inside, they go outside, vice versa. But the reads are at the same time. And so he's an athletic freak. He's a wide receiver playing tight end, and he has a beautiful chemistry at the quarterback. So nobody's just replacing him there. This is one of those rare things. Ben Coates back in the day with Drew Bledsoe and, a number of other tight ends over the years that we see. But yeah, Gronk and Brady, of course. But it's a combination. Brian need a waiver for this week. Zay Jones, Treylon Burks, Diontae Johnson on of the night. Thanks everybody. If you could hit the like button and subscribe button, I'd appreciate it. And you know what? If you want 2 free days at Rotowire, no credit card needed, just go to rotowire.com/try and you get a couple free days behind the paywall. See what we got over there. We'd love to have you on board. So Brian, answer your question here. Kyren Williams, I'm probably overhyped on him, but he did get 70% of the snaps. I believe it was 70. I think it was close to 70. It was 70, and he's getting targets. He's getting targets. So that's going to be what he is. If it's PPR and you need a running back, I think he's going to be a PPR play going forward. I do expect that, but I think your best choice here is Treylon Burks. I think that's the one because he's already getting involved more and more each week. He's a big target. Do I like the matchup with Philly? No. But they're going to throw him the ball. Philly's going to look to take away the run. But, man, for this week, Burks, that's a bad matchup for Burks. So I'm not going to lie. It's a bad matchup for Burks. For this week only, you know what? I'm going to go Kyren Williams against Seattle. Seattle's been bad, and Kyron's going to have opportunity to make a couple big plays in the passing game. Zay Jones coming off the big week, but the odds of that one repeating, maybe not so much. I have Zay Jones on a lot of rosters, and Detroit would seem like an easy matchup, but I think that game could go a little bit weird. I would probably just go Kyren Williams, and I'd call it a day there. Brian, but I play ETN, Pollard, Williams, Swift, Walker, play one. I would play Ken Walker this week. Ken Walker, I like his matchup this week. I think that's where it's all. See, with him, he's a boom-bust runner, right? A lot of short runs, and sometimes he breaks one off and it works. But he's using the passing game. He's using the receiver. Aaron Donald's out. It was normally going to be a horrible matchup, right? Rams number 1 against the run. Like, oh, my gosh, terrible. A'Shawn Robinson's done for the season. They lost him last week. And now Aaron Donald's out. That run defense is no longer, it's all about Aaron Donald and A'Shawn Robinson. So now that run defense is very vulnerable. So I'm going to definitely say Ken Walker here. He'll have the workload too. I'm going to take these last 3 and I got to get out. I got to go run some errand. Emmanuel, need to start Alvin Engram. Oh, man. If Bellinger puts in a full practice, you got to consider him. Evan Engram, I did him earlier in the show, he's done like nothing the last week. He's disappeared from the offense. If Bellinger practices in full by Friday, they'll have to have him. He'll have to get 4 or 5 targets. And for me, with Engram lately, that's the route you probably have to go. Pittman or Christian Watson? If Aaron Rodgers, and I know we got the long touch on with Jordan Love, I get it. If Aaron Rodgers plays, you got to go Christian Watson because Matt Ryan is going to have hell this weekend against Dallas's pass rush, and he's terrible under pressure. That's not good. Last question. I got to run. Gabby, would I start Pollard and Elliott? Sure. If those are your top 2 running backs, you definitely go that route. They both should be. Now, Indy's very good against the run. We saw the Steelers got to him a little bit, but Najee Harris didn't. It was like the backup guys they weren't ready for. Pollard has a better shot than Zeke this week because where you can run on them is outside, right? Inside, Grover Stewart, DeForest Buckner, not so good. So Zeke is a bad matchup here. But now the Cowboys block it up. So, you can use them. I'm not going to be able to answer any more questions, but if you have, Gabby, if you need a follow-up at Jim Coventry NFL, I would give me your other running backs like Friday, and then I can tell you what we're going with. And Emmanuel, you're welcome. Brian, you're welcome. And Melly, you're welcome. Guys, thanks. Have a great day, and we will talk soon.